Good Sunday morning, 9:49 the time. I'm your host, Randall White, here at Eat, Drink, Explore Radio. We come to you live each and every weekend, and certainly hope you start your Sundays off with us so that you need to know how to plan your fun time, your downtime, your leisure time, which is so important to all of us. We don't get enough of it, most of us anyway. Patty Byburn joins me right now, as she does every morning. And so far this hour, we've had lots of spooky places on because our compass word is ghost. But the word ghost does not always indicate like a spirit roaming around. There is a place called Bodie Ghost Town in the eastern slope of the Sierra Nevada. And the ghost there is not referring to a bunch of,
actual spirits haunting the place, but more the fact that it's a ghost town in that everyone left it.
And I believe at one point, Bodie was the largest town in all of California.
Wow.
But let's get the facts on that right now. We bring in Chris Spiller with California State Parks because it is a state park, state historic park, and she can give us some of the details on Bodie. Welcome to the program, Chris.
Hi, how you doing?
Fantastic, thank you. And I'm wondering, do you get people that come out to Bodie because it's the Halloween season, and then you have to kind of explain to them, no, we're not a haunted place. This is more of a historical site.
You know, that's funny because we get that year-round. Just this week, a gentleman walked up to one of our employees and said, on average, how many ghosts do you see here monthly? And, of course, he said he'd seen one already. And, of course, a lot of us that work here, I suppose there's some people that are more sensitive than others, but I've lived in 4 different houses here in 12 years. I'm sorry to tell you I have not ever seen a ghost, but
Right.
we have a lot of really rich history here at Bodie that's well worth discovering.
You actually live there in Bodie.
I do for most of the year.
We have a link online at eatdrinkexplore.com, and if you're watching the video version of our show, we have video from Bodie. These are accommodations that have been retrofitted.
Yes and no. Let's just say the insulation is pretty similar to what it was back in the 1870s and 1880s.
A little drafty?
Yeah, a little drafty, exactly.
This was not comfortable living.
No, it wasn't. There were 8,000 to 10,000 people here for about 5 years, and the winters could be harsh. Probably a lot of people rushed here with the excitement of gold discovery, and they found very harsh winter conditions, average 16 to 20 feet of snow in a season, terrible winds that could cause huge snowdrifts, make it really difficult to get around or get up to your job at the mines. And temperatures in the winter regularly dropped into the negative numbers.
Now, when you head out to Bodie, it's a very newly paved stretch of road that goes from the main highway 395 there for most of the way. But then the state park chose not to pave the final, 2 miles or so?
It's about 3 miles. It probably seems a lot longer to some people. And the road has gotten exceedingly rough. I've seen it go down to the bedrock. And but the original intent was that there should not be a modern paved road coming into this very historic town.
So to retain the authenticity, you're keeping the road the way it would have been back then, right?
Yes, and actually the roads were probably even worse then.
Yeah.
I'm looking at pictures of the town online right now while we're talking, and the description is that it's in an arrested state of decay.
Yes, that's correct. When it came into the state park system in 1962, it had been a ghost town for years. There's even a 1915 article from the New York Times referring to it as ghost town, even though people continued to live there and work in some of the mining operations. But when the state parks took it over, they took a look around and decided, no way were they going to take it back to what it was. Number one, 95% of it had burned down. When you come to Bodie, if you're looking at those pictures, you're only seeing 5% of what was here. There were 2,000 buildings there.
Wow.
Main Street was a mile long. So the intent of arrested decay is to not modernize, restore the buildings, but to keep them as they appeared when it became a park. That means we're going to do roof work to keep the weather out, to protect the artifacts that are in the buildings, maybe repair a wall, put in windows. And it's a special restoration glass that comes to us all the way from Germany to do that kind of work. And you'll also see workers in the summer doing foundation work.
So what sort of people lived there? Was it just miners? That was the main industry?
You know, it was a town like many other towns. For 5 years, the population boomed. There were 30 different mining companies and probably about 1,500 men working in the mines for very good money, $4 a day. But it was a mix of people. But in the early years, between 1877 and 1881, which we consider the boom period with the greatest population, there was a lot of men, let's put it that way, probably 10 to 1.
10 to
Wow.
1.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So
And-
that would spur a whole other industry.
Yes. There were almost 65 saloons and dance halls. And so the miners had a lot of things to do in their off time. And, of course, red light district sprang up. A very large Chinatown, almost 400 Chinese lived there at its peak in 1880. And the Chinese were not allowed to work in the mines or the mills. They were discriminated against, as they were across the West.
Interesting. I just am fascinated looking at these pictures, and it is amazing. There are some interiors showing like pool tables and the general store. It is really a look back in time.
It is. It's a great experience to wander through town, and you have some of the buildings open where people can go inside.
Yes, just a few of them. There is the Miners Union Hall, which is where you would go to join the labor union if you wanted a job in the mines. And that is our museum, and the museum actually predates the park. It was started by a member of the family that actually owned the property before State Park did. And we also have a small wagon display in a building we call the County Barn near the museum. And there's another house that you can walk partially into on the Green Street, which is where most people enter the park.
You know what's exciting is that some of the visitors there find out sometimes when they're there that they are related to people who lived in Bodie at the time. And that happened during my visit. There were some people visiting from back east who were related to a little girl. I think she was called the Angel or something. And she has a tombstone out in there's a cemetery there right as you get into town. And some fascinating stories you must hear all the time from relatives of people that once lived in Bodie.
Oh, yes. We have an active resident research project. If we meet someone at the entrance station who say they're related, we urge them to go into the museum and fill out a form so we can get someone to get some information. And a lot of these people are very generous. They have a lot of old pictures, and they'll be happy to share that with the park. So that's what's really exciting about working at Bodie, is that history doesn't stand still. It's always evolving.
Chris, what's the elevation there?
Almost 8,400 feet.
Yeah, so it's
Wow.
way up there, a bit cold to go in the wintertime, but I highly recommend taking the 395 corridor in the summer and give yourself time to pull off and experience a full day there because it's worth it. It's a fun spot. Bodie State Historic Park. Chris Spiller, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're certainly welcome.